Good evening, isolation fans and fellow quarantine buddies out there. Aaron Sagers here, reporting in from my Brooklyn apartment, but it's also sort of the paranormal headquarters for the paranormal pop culture fireside chats that we have been doing so many evenings. And I enjoy doing it. It's great. You guys keep me company, keeps me sane, and hopefully I add a little sanity to your life as well. It does not, maybe it doesn't appear that I look entirely sane because I'm wearing a fez. But you know what? My thought process on this is fezzes are cool. And it sort of felt appropriate for the conversation tonight. And, it was just felt like it was time for me to dress up a little bit. So we got a fez, got a nice little scarf, a jacket. I brought the formal attire to the fireside chat today. Now, before I bring this gentleman in, first off, do a quick check-in. How are you all doing out there in your respective homes? Let me know. I hope you're all safe. I hope you're happy. Hope you're making some excellent meals and engaging in some story time. And just generally maintaining a good attitude during these times. Dory says she loves the look. I appreciate it. I think we should bring fezzes back. We should wear them more often in the U.S. So now, before I bring this gentleman in, who is a good friend of mine, just a couple housekeeping things that you guys probably are used to hearing me say, but I'm going to say it again anyhow. I want to give a shout out to Dead Run. Dead Run is the book by Mike Maddox. It is available only on the Amazon Kindle, and I appreciate Dead Run for sponsoring this podcast, and I encourage you guys to pick it up, go check it out. It's a post-apocalyptic novel. You guys know this. The idea is a guy wakes up and feels compelled to run, and he can't stop running. If the people that stop running die, you have to constantly be moving like a shark in the water in this post-apocalyptic world impacted by a mysterious disease. It's not quite like zombies, but I think fans of zombie fictions definitely would dig it. So I would say check it out. Dead Run, Mike Maddox, only available on the Amazon Kindle. You guys have heard me say that many times. I'm going to keep saying it because I appreciate Dead Run being a sponsor of this little paranormal chat. And Darlene says she finally made it to a live stream, and I'm glad you did. Good to see you, my friend. And Stacy, you are 65% through it. It's good. Now you know the real truth. I am actually training for a marathon. I'm going to hit you up on that a little bit. And Amanda's here. Thanks for joining, Amanda. And James Armstrong out of Toronto, my buddy from Fan Expo, my fellow Tiki buddy, and a guy that knows way too much, not way too much, but knows a lot about music. And is just an overall great guy. So hello to Canada out there. And Andrea, it's a fez. Fezzes are cool. So now that I've done the check-in with all of you guys, I think it's time to bring this gentleman through. Now, let me just before I actually bring him to the stream, let me say some nice things about him. I have known Aiden for a few years now, and I think even before I had met him, not only was I aware of him, I was already a fan of his work. We moved in similar circles. We knew a lot of the same people. And when we actually finally got to hang out and meet up, it was at Dragon Con. We hit it off. And he's one of those people, one of those like just enormously talented people that, those people that you meet and you're so impressed by the work that they do and the talent that they have, that it brings you so much joy to share that with other people. I think that was sort of my experience with Aiden. Is so excited to have met him and to be watching his work, his illusionist work, that I just wanted everyone around to be like, come over here, come over. You guys got to check this out. This is so freaking cool. And that enthusiasm has not waned. And he is an illusionist in residence at the Queen Mary out in Long Beach, California. Great vessel, great haunted location. And his show will just knock the socks right off you. It is so impressive. And he also does a lot of work elsewhere. So with that said, let me go ahead and bring my friend through, and let's get this party rolling. And here he is. There is Aiden Sinclair, Master Illusionist.
Tiki in hand.
Tiki in hand. Well, yes. I mean, that is sort of the housekeeping we have to do as well. So I did make a tiki drink. I made a fog cutter, a classic, I believe, 1930s cocktail, and it is very British. It has some London dry gin in it. And I poured it in this little container made from Trader Vic's in London, one of the original Trader Vic's. And you've got my little Trader Vic's guy. Not many people have this guy. And so it felt like a good drink when we're talking about ships, a fog.
That's great.
And what do you have, Aiden?
Well, I got creative with some X-rated and some Cruzon tropical rum. And it was full. I made it too good. It's already,
just minutes ago it was full.
It's already gone. So,
you're gonna need a refill.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to make another one at some point.
Just work some of the illusionist abilities, and
I know. Yeah, that's the downside when you make a drink that's too good. It goes down like water, and you're like,
I know. Well, I was gonna cheers you, but I guess I'm just cheersing on my own.
Yeah. Cheers left.
Well, before we get into the juicy bits, like, how are you doing out there in California? How are you holding up? Hunkering down, surviving, maintaining sanity? How has it been?
It's been good. California was pretty quick on the draw with kind of closing things down. So we've been shut down since March the 13th was our last kind of public show, and we kind of go to the store and stay home. That's, we're trying to do our part to keep everybody safe. And it's cool on the creative side. You get a lot of time to kind of be creative. But I don't know, when we first met, it was just me flying around the world and doing my thing. And we've grown a lot in that time. So the hard thing about it for us was that, we have employees now. And those were people that rely on us for their paycheck. All of that, obviously is immensely stressful because, when you have people that depend on you and you got to go into work one day and go, hi, there's no work. What do you do? All you can do is try to get them all the information they need so they can try to get their unemployment. And, we've been doing the deal of trying to get, all the government loans that are coming out. Of course, the money was gone as soon as it was released, so it's challenging times in those ways. But it's like anything in life, everything passes. It's going to, you stay strong and get better. Oh, my goodness, there's Jordan Duncan. It's good to see him on the stream there.
Yeah, Jordan is saying, hey there to you and to me. Good to see you, Jordan. Another guy that I look forward to seeing. It's been way too long.
And Elena. Hi, Elena. So it's
Elena saying enjoyed the show at the Queen Mary. Yeah, you're faster on the draw. You got access to the comments as well. It's good to see that. And yeah, I do think it's an interesting note. Everybody is going through some very rough times. However, people in the entertainment industry, I would not say are having a harder time than others. However, they are so often freelancers and independent contractors. And when that gig is up and dries up, you don't know when that next one is going to come along. And everybody is impacted by this. Since I work in that world, it is hard watching a lot of colleagues and a lot of friends get hit by this. I have empathy for so many people, but it feels close to home.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many. So many people in the entertainment business as well. Just actors aren't working, television, motion picture, everything stopped. There's I think there's this perception too for a lot of those folks that just because you see somebody on TV, I think a lot of people assume that they're loaded. Like life is great, but they really rely on that gig. And when a gig shuts down, then there's nothing there for them right now. So a lot of people are struggling. I think every day we look at how fortunate we are, though. There's a roof over your head. You got people in your life that you care about. You're doing pretty good. So,
well, and it is a trying time. It is a difficult time, but it's also a time that when you are able to, I don't like to put pressure on people to be productive or creative because this is a difficult time. However, we sometimes are able to come up with interesting avenues as a result of this kind of trying time, and maybe we'll have a conversation with you. And you are actually tomorrow launching a series of virtual events, Ghost Ship Live, on the Queen Mary. And I want to get into that.
Awesome.
But first, give us sort of like the thumbnail sketch of what that is, and then we're going to get into sort of your background more.
Yeah, so we've been on the ship for about 2 years doing the show there, and because of the circle of friends that we have, I got interested in the paranormal almost a decade ago now, and initially very skeptical, of as an illusionist, like I create ghosts for a living, so I always kind of look for what's really producing phenomena when you go into a place that somebody says is haunted. Is it really haunted, or is it just a squeaky door because somebody didn't put some WD-40 on it? And I had a lot of great friends that had paranormal experiences, and I trusted their experiences, but I'd never really witnessed anything strange. But then I started performing in haunted places and spending a lot of time in them, and then I started seeing things I couldn't understand or explain. And that led me into the paranormal side of investigating and trying to find out, what those strange things are. So over the 2 years we've been on the Queen Mary, we've been investigating, and we did it privately initially, just myself and my fiance Becca, and we started building relationships and rapport with entities there. We started actually having conversations, and it became really compelling. So last October we opened that up to the public. And on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday nights after the shows, we'd invite a small group, 10 to 12 people, to join us. And they would come along on the investigation and see what we could interact with. And when the ship shut down on March 13th, we did our last one, and we streamed that live. And we're surprised how many people had kind of tuned in to watch it and what the responses were. And when they closed the ship, we really kind of took a step back and didn't want to publicly be doing anything on the ship. We didn't want to encourage anyone else to leave their house to go do things. But they've kind of softened some of the restrictions, and we have access to go back and continue the investigation. So we're really excited about going back tomorrow. Part of it is that we've built rapport over the last 2 years. We have regular people that we seem to be talking to. And we miss them. We want to go back and go, hey, are you guys okay? How are you doing? But the ship at the moment is eerily quiet. It's kind of a creepy place anyhow, but to be the only human being on the Queen Mary all by yourself, it's really trippy. So it's very, very eerie to go on that ship. It's just massive now, and we'll be going to a different location each week. That is kind of a historically haunted location of the ship, and doing a live stream investigation there to see if anything will interact with us.
Yeah, and I'm excited about this. Of course, I did an event at the Queen Mary and attended your theatrical seance just about a year ago, actually, and also led an investigation with Chad Lindbergh and Lindsay Center, and that was a great time, and yet it was hardly enough time to even really get a glimpse of the ship. So the fact that you're doing this over multiple nights, and you really are, you truly have the run of the ship, is impressive. Now, as cool as that is, I want to backtrack just a moment. I mean, outside of the paranormal investigation, the reason you're on the Queen Mary is you do perform the theatrical seance. So for those of us that are out there in the audience that don't know what a theatrical seance is, Why don't you give us a little bit of a breakdown on that, especially because being an illusionist, being someone that's engaged in the paranormal and holding the theatrical seance, I think sometimes people may not entirely get what that means. And you're not making fun of paranormal or spirits or anything like that.
No, not at all. The art of theatrical seance has been around since 1840s, and it really kind of is a style of presentational magic. Though in its original inception, it wasn't used as performance art. People would use techniques of magicians and con artists and kind of manipulate the public. They would create spiritualism activity, so to speak. They would fake ghosts. They would create ghosts, conjure them. Most of the operators back in the 1800s weren't very sophisticated. They would kind of specialize in one single method, maybe slate writing or table tipping, and they would be a conjurer of spirits in their specific method. And they would invite people into their home or into their parlor, and people would pay them considerable amounts of money to communicate with the departed. As time progressed, that has become a very small, specialized type of magic. What we do is we combine history, illusion, and ghost stories, and we put them all together. And a lot of people come, I think, expecting a magic show, and they experience something very different. It's very narrative driven. The stories are what carry that style of performance. It's not about the trick. It's about the ghost. It's about the person that you are conjuring for the evening. So when we present these shows, it's using the techniques of spiritualism and seance in order to create a performance art that allows people to have an interaction with a ghost. If you were to go on a paranormal investigation on any given night, something may happen, or most times something doesn't happen at all. You go in with all your equipment, or sometimes something will happen, and it's not until you play back the recordings do you find anything. So by using these techniques, you're able to actually create the ghost and give people that interaction of if they went to a seance, what would people experience? What would they feel? And our hope is that when you attend a show, that you feel a little bit closer to the place, that you don't leave feeling fooled or deceived, but maybe you have some questions about the weird things that we can't see and we can't touch, but yeah, we all experience. So.
And just a couple comments from the audience here. Heather did say she was there recently, I believe in January, February, and had missed your seance. So she was disappointed, but she'll have to go back.
I'm sorry we missed you,
and well, that's why hopefully once this all passes and business gets back to somewhat normal, she can return. As far as the Queen Mary itself, you might have to correct me on a couple dates, but had its maiden voyage in 1936, I believe.
Correct. 1936 she sailed, and she sailed right up until 1967. She was one of the two premier liners really in her day. Was the Queen Mary and the Queen Elizabeth at the time of her inception were really kind of the gold star standard, or the Concorde, or the first class way to travel if you were going to go to Europe from the United States. And then as the airline industry grew, her need kind of withered and faded. And today she's one of the last two ships of that period that really still exist. The other is the SS United States, which is in Philadelphia, which is in really poor shape. It's not open to the public at all, and they're really struggling just to save that ship because it's historical significance. It's a time and
you did freeze for a moment, so I'm going to pick up the slack for a minute. That the thing about the Queen Mary is, in addition to being, she was a luxury. Okay, a luxury liner, certainly a gorgeous ship. A gorgeous ship now, but even back in the time, it was the place where celebrities and the wealthy would take their trips, and it was really like a high class thing. And yet during World War II, it was enlisted. It was conscripted into service as a essentially a troop transport, and was painted. Its gorgeous red coloring was painted. It became known as the Gray Ghost, and was even involved in a tragic accident in 1942 where it was the Queen Mary was on a course meant to throw off pursuit by the German U-boats, and apparently the Queen Mary collided with another ship, essentially cutting it in two because the Queen Mary was so fast.
Yeah.
And more than 100 sailors were rescued. However, 337 men were killed. And Aiden, correct me if I'm wrong, but the Queen Mary, because she was such an important ship and was transporting these assets, essentially had to keep going while
they did
died in the water.
Yeah, it was a pretty horrible accident. When you hear of two major, huge ships colliding like that, you think it was, maybe in the middle of the night, but it happened at 2:00 in the afternoon. The captain of her escort ship, the RMS Curacao, had assumed that the Queen Mary was going to zigzag. It was a common technique to avoid U-boats, but the Queen Mary was so fast that zigzagging would make her a better target. So she wouldn't zigzag. She just kind of plowed straight ahead. And because of that, the Curacao cut in front of her. And when they realized what was happening, it was too late to turn either ship. And the Queen Mary sliced that ship in two. And 337 men died. And the Queen Mary did not stop to pick up survivors because they just couldn't, leave that ship sitting still in the water. When it was full of troops that were on their way to the war. In fact, the collision was even classified. The family members of those 337 people who died, they weren't even told until after the war how it happened. So, there was this long history of devastation after that. You can imagine if your 18, 19-year-old kid went off to sail in the Royal Navy and just didn't come home, and nobody really told you why. Or how. There were months went by before the families were even notified of the deaths. I mean, it was pretty horrible. That's part of her history.
And then, oddly enough, after that history, going from this luxury liner to wartime, after the war, she was given an upgrade and then went back into service as a luxury liner. It's fascinating, and
it is. And the list of people who sailed on that ship is incredible. I mean, it's like everybody who Walt Disney, Alfred Hitchcock, Audrey Hepburn, Clark Gable. I mean, it is the royalty of Hollywood. That was their choice place to go and travel. Buster Keaton, Elizabeth Taylor, Charlton Heston. The list is phenomenal. And when you took that trip, you'd be on the ship for a week, so it's pretty amazing that you could literally book a voyage and you never knew who you were going to run into on the ship.
Well, the having done the investigation there, and you do it, constantly, I was impressed by the area of the ship that was part of the collision with the Curacao. Yeah. And I guess that would be the forward. It was like what deck? It was like in the.
It's the rowboat is what they call it. Yeah. So the decks have all changed names over the years. Our theater is located on B deck, which is the lowest kind of passenger deck where people can stay today. But we go down lower to that from our theater into the rowboat, and that's where the collision took place. That's. The entire bow section was stove in.
And there was a lot of activity there that, at least the night that I was there, Becca, in fact, we were doing what is known as the Estes method, which you're familiar with, of using a spirit box, and then another person is blindfolded. And it did seem like, and I'm actually very skeptical of the spirit box, but it sounded very clearly, and Becca was kind of shouting this out. It sounded like there were so many different voices clamoring to come through with different kind of needs and missions at that moment. Has that been something that you've discovered, that it feels like there's just a lot of different voices that are hanging out on the ship?
We've done a lot more since you've been there, so the it's grown a lot, and we understand a lot more about who's there. We do feel like there are intelligent haunts there that do talk to us, and the Estes method has gotten a little more refined for us. That the same voice seems to come back, and we hear the same things. There were certain trends as Chad would come out once a month last year. There were things that happened on the very first investigation that Chad and Grant Wilson were a part of that have come back. Things that happened that night kind of prompted us to have other experiences later on. That was phenomenal. We film everything that we do as well, and that's kind of added a video record to this whole project for us. And it's amazing to us to have an experience and then to go back and look at video and go like, holy crap, that happened. We've literally had full conversations with people in Estes, back and forth, while there was K2 device interaction at the same time. So it's evolved a lot since you were there. And I think it's like teaching a child how to use a toy. The more we brought Estes, and the more I think, whoever we're talking to started to understand how it works, it worked better. Or they started to understand what a K2 was, it worked better. And those little damn cat balls that they have on Amazon, we have somebody in the rope hold now that just gets a kick out of them. Like, we can set it down, nobody's touching it, nobody goes near it. And not only do we get interactions from it, but we get interactions on request, which is pretty impressive when it happens. I think our approach has kind of had a lot to do with it, though, is that when we investigate, we don't demand, we don't go for our own gratification. We don't say, hey, knock on the wall to knock on the wall. We've approached every investigation with this kind of openness of going, hi, we're here to talk to you. And we're here to listen. And if there's anything that you can do, if we can help you in any way, that's what we're here to do. So we're not going to make you do tricks. If we ask an entity to respond, we'll ask verification questions, but we explain why we're asking the same question, a multitude of times, so that we can see if we get the same answers back, if it's consistent. So it's really interesting.
Can you tell us a little bit, for people that are going to tune in to the Ghost Ship Live series, maybe some of the entities that you're going to try to contact, and maybe some of the experiments that you want to try while you are establishing contact?
We're going to try, for one thing, we're going to go over to the ship a little bit earlier than when we start to film, because we want to go down to our space and kind of just announce to the space, hey, we're here tonight. We're here to talk to you, but we're not going to be in our theater. We're going to be up in the ballroom. If you want to come talk to us, please come up, because our assumption is that the intelligent haunts that are there will follow us, that they're intelligent, they're people, that they understand what we talk to them, and that they respond. But we're also going to be going to places on the ship that we've never investigated before. So we're really kind of curious to see what happens. Do we get interactions in the theater? Do we get interactions in the Queen Salon? Do we get interactions in the isolation ward? It's going to be quite an interesting experiment, I think, for us for the next couple of days, or a couple of weeks, I should say.
Yeah, most certainly. And I am curious about, when you have a location that has such history as the Queen Mary, and then also has a paranormal reputation, investigators going there, shows filming there. There is the facts. There is the potentially, allegedly real activity. And then there's also the lore, which is sometimes less based in fact. So Are there any perhaps tales that have not been borne out by research or facts that you would like to put to rest? Maybe something that has been a kind of a red herring of sorts that people have gone and chased that may not be connected to real activity.
I think the perception that people bring to the Queen Mary has been a lifelong problem there. I think a lot of people who get interested in the paranormal and who go looking for ghosts get so fixated on death that they just have this inclination to look for negative things: murder, suicide, violence. So there's lots of published, books that talk about the haunts of the Queen Mary, and almost every one of them, you'll find some reference to this mass murder, that there was a murder on the ship and this guy killed his whole family, and that never happened. The reality of it is it was never, ever happened. It was a story that was concocted by a fraud medium in the 1980s. And that guy became recognized as an expert on the Queen Mary. And to this day, people write books because this guy said something in the 80s. It must be true. But they don't validate. They don't go back and actually do any research of their own.
It becomes fact, and then the additional stories reinforce this facts. Yeah. And it just kind of it spins off into this whole direction. It's so frustrating because the history is the most important part for me at any location. So it's just so frustrating.
It's hard when you have people that have come so far into their belief that because they read it in a book or they heard so-and-so talk about it, that it must be true. But they've done no research on their own. And because it's a sensational story of murder or violence or suicide, people love those stories. I think it's fascinating that probably the most famous ghost of the ship is a little girl named Jackie. And without a doubt, people have interacted with this child since the 1970s on the ship. She's been seen. And by seen, I mean seen, like a physical apparition. People don't see a transparent ghost. They see a child wandering lost on the ship. And obviously, if you see a child that looks lost, you would interact with them and go, hey, are you okay? Do you need help? And when you approach this child, she'll disappear. She fades away. Like you blink and she's just not there. So Jackie has produced singing. She has produced, electronic voice phenomena. People have gotten pictures of a spectral child. So there's no doubt to me that Jackie is there. The problem is that a lot of people who see Jackie, they always see her in a swimming suit. And this same fraud medium from the 80s decided that she's in a swimsuit. Therefore, whatever you're wearing when you die must be your forever clothes. And therefore, Jackie drowned in the pool. The reality of it is that never happened. There's not a single record of any child ever drowning on the ship. It just didn't happen. But I try to view the paranormal in a different way. And I believe if bad things make ghosts, then maybe good things make ghosts too. And maybe Jackie's there and in her swimsuit very simply because maybe that's just where she learned how to dive. Maybe that pool is the place where Jackie learned how to swim, and it was wonderful. Or maybe Jackie played Marco Polo with a boy in that pool, and that boy grew up to become her husband. Maybe that pool was the first place that they met. I think Jackie's there not because she's tragically died there. I think she's there because she's happy there, and that she had an experience on the ship that draws her back. There are weddings almost every day on the Queen Mary when she's open to this date. It's a place where people fell in love and had their first kiss and their first dance. And, there's way more happy memories on the Queen than there are bad. So, I think people forget that. I think they forget how much life there is there.
Yeah, I think that's such an excellent point because, and also we crave some sort of order. So we want to apply rules to the paranormal, but so often it doesn't necessarily play by the rules that we want it to. So this idea that the bathing suit means drowning, as opposed to maybe this person is still alive and just having, or maybe no longer alive, but had lived a nice long life. One never knows. I think I want to bring up this comment from Stacy. That's not the comment. Here it is. One night on the Queen Mary, my friend and I were trying to find our way back to our room. We got confused and the hallway lights blinked to show us each hallway to take. Have you heard of something like that happening?
That does not surprise me at all if that had happened. We have had people encounter crew members that didn't exist, stewards showing them to their room, and the next day telling the front desk that they thought it was cool that, they still wore the old time uniforms. and they don't. There's nobody on the ship that would have been dressed like that. So I do think there's a bit of that there. Our theater, we seem to have somebody who's learned how to use our tablet, play music for us. Certain songs that have meaning for Becca and I will play, and they should. It's a randomly generated playlist, so a song shouldn't play back to back, or songs that have significance to that particular spirit. We'll walk into the room and be talking about that ghost, and all of a sudden the music will change and a certain song will start to play. And the odds of it happening, as a skeptic, you'd be like, wow, what a coincidence. But the coincidences happen way too much. It's just too common. We were away from the ship for like 10 days, walked back onto the ship, opened the door, the music changed, and it started playing. It's been a long, long time.
Yeah.
It's just this, it's really surreal. Hey, Rick, it's good to see you. And Jordan asked a good question about whether Jackie might be a tulpa. And a lot of people think she might be. I think Jackie is someone who likes to come back and visit. The Lady in White's another really famous ghost of the Queen Mary. And of course, because it's a beautiful woman in a white dress, somebody decided, it must be a bride that was jilted and killed herself. There's no documentation that ever happened. So it's got to be something scary, spooky, bad. It's some kind of bad story about a bride. I don't think that's the case at all. When people see the Lady in White, they always describe her as being beautiful in this gorgeous dress. And almost every description of the Lady in White is always, she was the most beautiful woman I've ever seen. And when you think of a woman on her wedding day, what woman on her wedding day is not the most beautiful woman in the world? Her hair is perfect, her makeup is perfect. And if you can think of a haunting as maybe that's what heaven is for somebody, is spending eternity in the one moment where you were the most happy.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that's what it is. Maybe it's this ability to go back to this moment where you were happy, and why wouldn't you? Some of those weddings actually work out. Some of those people who get married on the Queen Mary stay married for 50 years. And, I met my fiance on the ship. It's a special place. It's just, why wouldn't you want to go back and visit it if you had the need?
Just because you did bring up the crew member, Jack brought up that story as well about seeing a crew member in the room on the ship where they have models, and crew member that's not actually there. I will say the two stories that I have on the Queen Mary, one was just I'm like a kid on Christmas Eve when I'm in a new location for the first time, so I don't sleep very well. Instead, I like to get up and wander around, and the Queen Mary is certainly a place where you can do that in the middle of the night. It's just like roam about, and there is certainly a feel to the ship, this almost like palpable energy of when you walk around, just this, and not oppressive or negative or anything, just you feel this well, actually, I will say, borrowing from Heather's comment, Heather in the comments said that it's like enchanted, and I would agree with that. I think there is that kind of feeling. However, the second thing was, I don't know if I told you this, that the very first night that I arrived there, I was supposed to arrive earlier in the day to have the entire day on the Queen Mary. However, due to delays, I ended up getting in at something like 2 a.m., which was 5 New York time. And I was so tired that I checked in. I went to my room and climbed into bed. All I wanted to do was pass out before the activities of the event began. And after a moment, I hadn't fallen asleep yet, but after a moment, I felt the sheet next to me lift, and I felt this weight almost slide in and lay down next to me in bed. And because I apparently have done this enough and I was tired enough, it was more of an annoyance where I was just like, this is not a good time. I need to sleep. Like, just not now. And
that's one of the most reported things that happen, though, is someone sitting on the bed or getting into bed.
Yeah,
that happens a lot on the ship. And what I think is hysterical is it tends to happen to the Midwestern housewife who knows nothing about the Queen Mary or the history, and just they realize the Queen Mary is a cheaper hotel than the Hilton, so why not stay on a hotel that's a ship? And there are a lot of people who don't know anything about the paranormal history of the ship, and those are the reports that you really kind of cling on to, because they didn't go there looking for it, yet they have this experience of waking up in the middle of the night and somebody's sitting on their bed, or someone's getting into bed with them.
Well, that's the coolest story, though. Like that's what I love, is that as much as I enjoy being part of the paranormal community, there is a tendency sometimes to act like a potential entity, spirit, ghost is sort of there for your amusement, but also we get so caught up in the pursuit that we just don't pay attention. And that's interesting. And but when you're not expecting something and then something happens, that to me is notable. That's the interesting story. And I love that kind of experience quite a bit.
Those are my favorite Jackie sightings, are that Midwest housewife that goes up to the front desk and asks the front desk to call the police because there's a child lost, and they were trying to help them, and the child, they just can't, I think they ran away, I can't find them. And then they'll say something like, I think they got lost coming back from the pool because she was in a swimming suit. And by the way, a swim sounds nice. Where is the pool?
Yeah.
And they're completely unaware that there is no pool. There's no open pool on the ship that you can go swimming in. So, and their reality kind of comes crashing in around them when they get told, yeah, there is no pool. Because that automatically makes them, go down this rabbit hole of like, what the hell did I just see? Or occasionally a front desk person will be like, oh, it was probably the ghost of Jackie. And of course, suddenly that person is now checking out because they're very religious, and they didn't know anything about this. And, how dare they, how could you not tell us that the hotel was haunted? Because people don't Google sometimes. It's always funny to me when we have those guests. On the paranormal side, though, the sad side of it, though, is that so many people have gone to the Queen Mary over the years to investigate, that they range from professional and respectful to just absolutely horrible. There are people that walk up and down the hallways at 3 o'clock in the morning shouting, come at me, ghost, as if that's, going to cause some kind of paranormal activity. There are groups in Southern California that investigated there regularly for a long time, and then for whatever reason stopped, or management of the hotel changed and they stopped doing investigations. So there are groups in California that feel like they have personal ownership in it, of like, that's our place to investigate. How dare anybody else go there? It's that side of the paranormal community to me is extremely fascinating. And in a way sad. I mean, when we announced the event, almost immediately somebody had posted, why don't you use this other investigator? Why is a magician doing this? Why isn't it my guy doing this?
Right.
My guy's investigated there for 8 years. Why isn't it that guy? Well, that guy probably didn't ask to do the investigation. The Queen didn't ask us. We asked them to expand what we do. And you would think somebody that was really interested in the paranormal would just be interested to go like, I wonder what these guys see. I wonder what these guys experience. I wonder what their investigative method is, and like it or not like it, at least you could go be open-minded to it. Go, well, let's see how they do it. Because when I see another investigator, that's what I try to do. I try to be open-minded until I have a reason to have a negative opinion.
Sure. It's interesting, the comment about people being respectful versus disrespectful. It's obviously not just paranormal investigators. It's everyone, no matter what they're doing. People that go on vacations and need to make it all about them. I paid my money to be here. This is my experience. Or I'm going to the movie theater, so it doesn't matter if I am on my cell phone because I paid my money. And there's the people that get very self-involved. There's also the other kind of element within that of people that don't know that they're being disrespectful. They are just so enthused and getting caught up in things that they perhaps need a helpful reminder that, hey, okay, there's other people involved in this as well. Yeah. But
you're talking to a person, that you're, it's not a thing. It's not there for your entertainment. it's a human. That's the way we look at it. Is it's a
There's
person.
people that knock on the window on the glass at aquariums and like
Yeah,
get too close to wild animals at a at
yeah,
a zoo. It's the same kind of mentality. I think it's just it's human. It's
yeah,
humans, the
yeah.
living.
It's just so surreal. I think it's fascinating how many times I've seen people go to a public investigation though, where there's a large group and they'll do something like, hey, if you're really here, can you move something? Can you make something move?
Yeah,
And then in those rare times when something does move, 9 times out of 10, the person that made that request screams and runs out of the room.
yeah,
We always start our investigations by explaining to people, look, if you ask for something and it happens, don't run away. How disrespectful is that? That you don't know how much energy that might have taken for someone to actually say, hey, I'm here. I did the thing that you asked me to do, and then you run away. And
yeah.
what compounds it when you look at places like the Stanley Hotel or the Queen Mary is that every day somebody goes to the Queen Mary and looks for a ghost every single day. So if you were a resident specter, if you haunted that place, how long do you think it would take you to be sick and tired of hearing shave and a haircut knocked on a wall?
Right.
Well,
What I think is so cool about what you're doing with the Ghost Story Live is, or Ghost Ship Live, apologies, is I think that some locations, I'm thinking in particular Eastern State Penitentiary, where I've been probably the most out of all the locations I've been to. For so long, there was a span of 20 years where no one was in there. And I kind of think that creates a bit of like a paranormal crock pot, if you will, this stew
yeah.
that's like where things are just kind of bubbling up and building and building and building in this time where you really haven't been on the ship much. I think it's so interesting to see what's going to kind of pop off when you go in there tomorrow and you start this investigation. I just think it's going to be so like ripe for
I think so too. I think so too. Every time that we investigate, when we are away for a little while, it comes back really strong. When we come back, it's like, bam, it's right there. When we do them every night,
mm-hmm.
we get really good reactions on the first night, and then they start to fade away. Like it gets harder for them, or maybe they get tired of talking to us. I don't know which. So, but we looked at it this last summer. We tried doing 4 days in a row of investigating. And at the end of the 4 days, both Becca and I were physically exhausted. We were just beat because you're out till 2:00 in the morning, and then you do it again and again and again, and you're dealing with people. And we're human and alive and here, and that kicked our butt. So how much does that affect something that's not corporeal, that's not even physical?
People are tiring.
Yeah. So I'm super excited tomorrow. Our first location is going to be the Queen Salon, and it's a gorgeous room. It's a room that Bob Hope sang in. It's where the first class would go and dance at night, and it's just a beautiful, beautiful room. It's all the original Art Deco art is still there, but it's also a place where people have seen and experienced things quite a bit. So I'm really curious, with nobody having even been in that room for the last 6 weeks, what will happen? Will we get a response? Will there be interaction? So we're going to start there. And I think over the coming weeks, we're probably going to go to the isolation ward and the rope room. And we are trying to get permission to go down into the pool. The pool is closed to the public. It has been for quite some time. And it's not just the public, like nobody's allowed in there, not the crew, not tours, because they're trying to preserve the Art Deco art and the tile work that's in there. So many people have walked over the floor that it's deteriorated the flooring, and it's a style of art that doesn't exist anymore. Nobody makes it anymore. So any damage that is done, it will become a reproduction when they have to, if they had to replace it. For a long time, people used to break into the Queen Mary as well, and that used to be the place they would want to go to, is the pool. And a lot of those folks didn't understand that I mean, it sounds cool to go into an empty pool, to climb into this empty void of a space. But when the ship was built, it was made to have a boiler underneath the pool, and that's what actually heated the water was one of the ship's boilers. But when the ship was parked in Long Beach, that boiler was removed. So that's the structural support for the bottom of the pool. So it's really just thin steel that has been sitting there for 50 years. So walking across the bottom of that pool today, there's a good chance, a decently weighted person could go right through that floor. And if you went through the floor, you're going to fall a little ways, and then you're going to have a pretty gruesome death. And you'll get to stay on the Queen Mary forever too, I suppose. So well, but of course, every day, like, why can't we go?
Stacy mentioned she did actually have some good experiences there in the past, and the shower room was another. Elena was saying the shower room, and just some interesting. We're gonna wind it up, but I just want to throw this out here. This is interesting that, well, Jordan, semi-serious question, but every female haunting is described as the lady in XYZ color dress. Yeah, I think it's how we process images, how we interpret the thing that we are seeing. It's not always actually, a woman in the dress. It's just how we see it.
John had a great theory about that too, that it was perhaps that's a way of a ghost going into your mind and going, this is how you see a ghost. This is how you see a female ghost. So that's how I'll make myself appear. But you're right. There are haunted archetypes in every haunted place I've ever been. Man in a hat, lady in a dress, creepy child.
Yeah. Same thing with like UFOs, everything like that. Amanda does point out she hopes she doesn't get stuck wearing a dress for eternity. Always dress appropriately, Amanda. Dress for the haunting you want. That's and then Carly says, "Where's the lady in blue jeans?" She's probably out there. We're just not paying attention to her.
Exactly. She blends in with the contemporary people too much.
Yeah.
Even Quinn stopped in and said hi too, man. She just released her new album, her new single. So I got to give a shout out to my friend Raven Quinn. If you guys love some rocking, amazing music, look up Raven Quinn and you will be amazed. And she's amazing.
I didn't even see that she popped in, but hi, Raven. Yeah. I should have you come in and do this as well. I would love you. It's been way too long since I've really had a good talk with you. So, bring me. Nobody does this anymore. I don't know why I just did this. Do this, do that thing to me. So Aiden, before I let you go, my friend, first off, thank you again for joining tonight. I'm super excited about tomorrow night and the next 4 nights at least.
On the next 4 weeks. Yeah.
4 weeks. 4 weeks.
Every Friday for the next 4 Fridays. And then we'll see, what lockdown is and stay-at-home orders and all of that stuff. But we'll be streaming live at 7 p.m. Pacific. That'll be 10 p.m. Eastern. And we'll be streaming on Instagram and on Facebook. The Instagram is at Aiden Sinclair's Magic, and Facebook is what's on the screen there, Aiden Sinclair's Magic as well. And we'll go live and we'll just investigate until, it goes away. Last time I think we did this for a couple of hours. We had good interaction, and we'll see where it goes tomorrow night. Each week we'll go to a different spot, and it's a way for you at home to stay at home, sit on your couch, have a cocktail, and come to the Queen Mary at the same time. So
I am excited about it. I thank you so much for your time tonight, my friend, and I hope you're well. Tell Becca I said hi, and let's definitely do this again, hopefully in person sooner than later. And man, it was a pleasure, and I just really appreciate you. I appreciate your time.
Thanks for having me. Everybody stay home, stay safe, and stay healthy, and hopefully we see you live soon.
All right, we'll talk to you soon, Aiden. All right, guys, and that's about wrapping it up for me as well. Thank you guys for joining. I had a great time. Aiden is like one of my. This is actually a really nice thing, is that as much as I like Aiden, I don't always get a chance to chat with him. He's busy. I get busy, so it's kind of great that we are able to do this, and this is just such a pleasure. And also for you guys too, that I'm happy you're here. I'm happy I get to talk to you. It kind of keeps me going, and that's great. And yes, Carly, the Fezzes are cool. Now before I let you guys go, just a couple, the housekeeping things that I do at the end here. I'm going to do it again. All right. Once again, let's give some love to my good folks over at Dead Run by Mike Maddox, available only on Amazon Kindle. Stacy's reading it. She's 65% through. She likes it. You should be reading it. We should even have like a paranormal book reading club, a book club. Let's do it. Download it. Let me know, and we can chat about it. We should actually have Mike back on the show as well. Also, beyond that, you guys have probably heard me talk about this many times. I'm going to keep talking about it. I do co-host the Nightmarica podcast. It's available on iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, everywhere. And it's a fun podcast, kind of combining two generations of paranormal enthusiasm. Me, I've done a lot of work and a lot of research in that world. And Brett, who is definitely a spooky fangirl and true crime enthusiast. We come together, we tell stories all across the country. Typical, like different stories, maybe true crime, maybe cryptid, maybe UFO, ghosts, a lot of ghosts. So check that out. I would appreciate it if you did. And leave a review. Tell your friends, tell your neighbors, even tell your enemies, because even your enemies need some interesting podcasts to listen to. You could say hi to me, Twitter, Instagram, also here, Facebook. Don't be a stranger. And in addition, I'm going to let you guys know something first. So I'm doing this thing. I'm running the New York City Marathon in November. I'm running it for a charity. It's called the Eastside House Settlement up there in the Bronx. It's an educational charity. What they normally do is they are able to provide classes for at-risk, low-income kids, as well as their families and adults, to help those adults become competitive in the job market and get the education so they can really enter that economic stream. Right now, they need help more than ever because they are at risk. They are low income, and just a couple bucks helps them keep things going. Normally, these funds for a marathon will fund them for the next year. Now it's funding them right this second. So it'll get kids a distance learning kit, so they can take classes at home. It will get them some groceries. It will help them with rent. It's all very important. And I'm running the New York Marathon for them. And with that in mind, I'm going to have a trivia night. I'm going to do a pop culture trivia, Zoom trivia for the New York City Marathon for the East Side House. It's $10 to join, and it's through Venmo. $5 of that goes to charity, and $5 of that goes to a prize pot. So the winner takes it all home, takes home that collective amount right there. It's going to be happening next Wednesday, April 29th at 9 p.m. Pop culture trivia. And it's not too difficult. There are some difficult questions in there, but it's not too difficult of a contest. So I hope you guys come. I hope you compete. It's going to be a lot of fun. And bring some cocktails, although that might dull your ability to answer pop culture trivia questions. So I hope you guys show up for that. It is for a good cause. And hey, Carly, thank you. Carly says she listens to the podcast. I appreciate it. And the Bobby Mackey's episode, that's right, that's out there right now. We should do a trip to Bobby Mackey's. And hey, guys, I'm going to wrap it up, but thanks for being here. This was fun. Thank you, Jordan. Jordan says it was fun. I agree, Jordan. I had fun. So, yeah, and Stacy, I hope it's a good fundraiser idea it's a really important cause, so I hope it works out. I'm excited about it. I'll be hosting it. Maybe I'll wear this fez. Maybe I'll let you guys decide what I should wear for the trivia hosting. You let me know. We'll figure it out. And Jordan, thank you for subscribing to the podcast, man. All right. I appreciate it. That's awesome. I'm so excited. All right, guys, you have a great night. Thanks again for being here. Check out Aiden's live Ghost Ship Live tomorrow. And wherever you are, take care of one another. Keep a social distance. Stay safe. And always stay weird.